This is lesson 10.10, decimal fractions. Adjusting the divisor is the name of this lesson. We'll do a couple warm-up things first here. This slide looks maybe a little bit ridiculous for fifth grade, but very simply, it asks us what's 3 divided by 1. As we've kind of hopefully are aware that 3 divided by 1 is simply going to be the number 3. And I want to point out that when you do a problem like this, when you have to divide, you can look at this as a missing factor. So you can turn this into a multiplication problem simply by rearranging some of the symbols. What we're looking for is what times 1 would equal 3. So you can turn it around and look at it just like that. Sometimes it's good, however, to look at this problem in terms of what it's really asking. So we've got 3 divided by 1, which we already know is 3. But what it's asking us is it's asking us how many, if we have 3 of something and we want to put them into groups of 1, how many groups of 1 would we have? And you can see this visually shows us we have 3 groups of 1. As in with so many things with math, we're given problems that show us patterns. So remember what I said, that we can change this problem around, and we could look at this as a multiplication problem. We just switch things around just a little bit. We're able to do that with any of these other 2 problems that we have here. But what this is saying, this first one, it's just saying that we have 3 things and we're wanting to divide them up into 10 groups. Well, it's hard for us to picture something that is 3, a whole number, and dividing it into a number that's greater than 3. So we have to be able to picture the number 3 in terms of ones and also tenths position. So, and that might help us understand how to do this a little bit more. We also could look at this and say, well, let's turn this into a multiplication problem. What number, when we take it times 10, is going to equal the number 3? Well, can we put the number 3 divided into 10 different groups? We can, if we can chop this up into tenths. And then you have to kind of picture our sticks that we've used to represent groups of 10. We can go to that on another page, but very simply, 3 divided by 10 is 0 and 3/10. And then this last one. Okay, so now we've got a number. We've got the number's 3 still, and we're going to divide into it. We're going to want to find out how many tenths there are in 3. So, how many tenths are there? And it might help us to think of this number again as 3 and 0/10. So, how many tenths are there altogether? Again, I'm going to revert back to my multiplication problem just to kind of give you a lot of different approaches here all at once. Get my dot in there somewhere. Okay, so we've got something. When we take it times 1/10, we get the number 3. Well, when we take 1/10 times 30, we get the number 3. So how many tenths are there in the number 3? There are 30 tenths. Now we could have stopped with these 3 problems right in the middle. 3 divided by 10 we said was 3/10. 3 divided by 1, 3. 3 divided by 1/10, there's 30. But I thought let's go ahead and take this one step further, and let's see if we can see a pattern here. I can see that I've got 3/10, I've got 3, I've got 30. Okay, so let's go back to thinking about this. Then we're going to come back up at the very end and we'll swing back to this one. So how many 100ths are there in the number 3? Well, if I'm dealing with hundreds, I might want to make this number so that I can see the hundreds place value. So 3, there's 3 groups if I divide it into 1. There's 30 groups if I divide it into tenths, and there are 300 groups if I divide it up into hundredths. Let's now look backwards. 300, 30, 3. Oh, I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to put a decimal place in here. And look what happens every time I go up. My decimal point moves over just a little bit. So when I move my decimal point up here, I end up moving it one more place. I've got a decimal there. I've got a 0 and a 3 to show that my answer 3 goes into or 100, excuse me, goes into 3/300 times. So, and I don't think it's a bad thing for you to see this has a fraction too. 3/100.